Hi, and welcome to the third episode of the Silver Lining series, where we'll discuss patterned reactions to stress and how self-awareness can be a powerful tool in making positive behavioral change. Here's a question. Would you say that you were an introvert or an extrovert? Are you organized or messy? Are you a morning person or a night owl? These questions are usually pretty easy to answer, but they only scratch the surface of being truly self-aware. Self-awareness is a beautiful thing. It's the ability to see ourselves clearly, to understand who we are, how others see us, and how we fit into this world. Self-awareness allows us to identify our strengths and weaknesses. It allows us to better understand how employees and coworkers and friends perceive our behavior. And it helps to better empathize and manage our own emotions. But being self-aware of how we handle our emotions can be challenging under stressful circumstances. And right now, we are all living in constant stress. And more times than not, that stress results in feelings of burnout. Christina Maslach, a professor at the University of California, Berkeley, and one of the foremost researchers on burnout, began studying this phenomenon back in the early 1970s with employees in service organizations. And she noticed a trend. Workers often reported feelings of emotional exhaustion, negativity directed at clients and patients, and feelings of professional incompetence. Burnout was stifling people's ambitions, idealism, and sense of worth. Burnout perpetuates a cycle of stress and anxiety. The issue, well, one of many, is that anxiety is contagious. Brené Brown, a renowned researcher of shame, vulnerability, empathy, and courage, discusses how anxiety is one of the most contagious emotions we experience. She explains that anxiety is actually a function of groups and not individuals. For example, at work, when things are stressful, but the whole team seems to be doing okay, and then all of a sudden one person freaks out because the copier is broken, as if it's the only copier in the building. And then all of a sudden there is mass chaos, and everyone is pacing and talking a mile a minute. Anxiety has a domino effect. But even when mass chaos and anxiety are spreading like wildfire, we individually have our own ways of behaving under stress that we have adopted and nurtured since childhood. Now, I'm not a therapist, and I'm not going to get into how your childhood experiences and family dynamics impact who we become as adults. But I do encourage that reflection, because therapists, they know what they're talking about. I love mine. But regardless, there are two major categories most of us fall into when we're in stressful situations. We either default to overfunctioning or we default to underfunctioning. Overfunctioners are those who move in quickly to advise, rescue, and take over when stress hits. They avoid worrying about their own problems by focusing on others. Overfunctioners micromanage rather than looking inwards.
Champions. Wow.
In contrast, underfunctioners invite others to take over in stressful situations. They harp on the areas where they can't get organized. They avoid and tend to develop physical and/or emotional symptoms when stress is high.
Ooh, delicious super cookie. It'd be better if I dip it in that chocolate. Oh. Is this what you want, Lillian?
Simply put, overfunctioners. I don't feel, I will do, I don't need help. Versus underfunctioners. I won't function, I'll fall apart, I need help. So, which one are you? For me, it honestly depends on the situation. I'm an older sister, so naturally I think I jump into the overfunctioner role in times of family stress. But when it comes to myself and my own stressors, I can often freeze and feel helpless, underfunctioning. And there is no shame in either of those responses. But we have to become aware of those responses. We have to be honest with ourselves. Tasha Eurich, an organizational psychologist and New York Times best-selling author, explains that we are asking ourselves the wrong questions when trying to self-evaluate and become more self-aware. We are so used to asking why when we should really be asking what. For example, asking why me versus what are the most important things to me? Or asking, why do I feel so terrible? Versus what are the situations that make me feel terrible and what do they have in common? One simple word. One word can change our perspective and tone. Asking why traps us in self-pity and keeps our attention in the past, whereas asking what expands our thinking, looks to the future, and puts you in control. Rumi said, "Yesterday I was clever, so I wanted to change the world. Today I am wise, so I am changing myself." Nothing better than an inspirational quote. So how do we do it? How can we become more honest with ourselves, develop true self-awareness, and change our patterned responses to stress? We lead with empathy and take a deep breath. We name our feelings and reactions. I tell my patients all the time, you can't unknow what you know. And when you become aware of your bad habits, you are more likely to change those behaviors. But more than that, we can commit to developing a calm practice. Brené Brown defines calm as perspective, mindfulness, and the ability to manage emotional reactivity. Think for a second about someone you know who you would characterize as calm. For me, it's my dad. Calm is his superpower. Not only does he just have that way about him that makes you feel calm when in his presence, but in stressful situations, I can count on one hand the amount of times in 26 years that he has been emotionally reactive. He has this crazy ability to not react to heightened emotions like fear and anger, which is even more impressive when living in a house with 4 girls. He knows how to bring perspective to complicated situations. When I'm stressed and over or under functioning, he brings me back down to earth and puts things in perspective. Harriet Lerner, a clinical psychologist and author, says anxiety is extremely contagious, but so is calm. So the silver lining is that in times of stress and chaos, we have choices. We can choose to ask ourselves what instead of why. We can choose to be honest with ourselves, to become more aware of our reactions to stress. And we can choose to commit to spreading calm.